Yeah, this one's got like I built a.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Drone Therapy Season 4, Episode 6. And I'd like to give a shout out to our unannounced sponsor because they don't even know, Monster Energy Drinks, and I'm going to pop my first one right now. All right, and as you all saw from the name of the show, we're going to be talking FPV again tonight, and Ron and I aren't really up to the sport on FPV, but the particular systems that we're talking about tonight, we happen to have Ethan, our normal panel member, who's going to be taking a hiatus and trying to check some things out after tonight, and he's going to give us some introduction to the Caddx Vista and his work with the DJI FPV system, and we've also got Mitch from Old Guy in a Drone. So I'm going to throw it around the room real quick and let everybody kind of give their thoughts on it. I'm going to start out with John Cuppi.
Hey guys, it's good to be back. I'm really eager to learn more about this DJI FPV system from Mitch, and we're going to talk about the Caddx Vista. So it's going to be a really good show tonight.
And
with that said, I'm going to pass it on to Ethan.
Ethan, okay.
Hey guys, glad to see everybody out tonight. We've got a great show for you. I really can't wait to talk about the DJI system. It's been a game changer for me getting into FPV. And so any questions you have, we're going to go over the Vista mainly, but we can get into other stuff too. So if you have any questions at all, just, drop a comment and we'll definitely get to you. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Ron.
Thank you so much, Ethan. How's everybody tonight? I see we got a good group in the chat already. I think it's going to be a good show. I think it's going to be a lot of great information on FPV drones and transmission systems. I'm glad to see Mitch on here with us tonight. Maybe I could take notes and become an FPV flyer with those and step. Right now, my FPV flyer is my Mavic Mini. So hopefully after tonight, I can get something a little nicer. I'm going to pass it over, I guess, to Mitch.
Nope, you're going to bring it back to me.
Sorry.
Wait. You got to understand this. I have to do this. And now, after much negotiation and many ass kisses, we finally got him. The biggest celebrity to date on Drone Therapy, none other than Old Guy Drone.
What an introduction.
I thought I was on Ken Herron's show for a second.
I always wanted to do that.
That was awesome, man. Well, you did it to me the other night, and I was just like, I can just feel the blood in my face just going.
Oh man!
But anyway,
hi everybody. I see all my buddies are in the chat, so I feel right at home.
Okay, so since I normally do this, we've only got a couple more weeks to go. I would like to, and I'm not even going to roll it because Mitch pointed out we've been beating it to death on every show. But there's a lot of comments been made. Please, if you haven't made a comment, get out there and make a comment. We all don't think that the DJI remote system to your phone is a good idea. We do think that it's a good idea to just basically have, some information basic, and then the only law enforcement have the detailed information. So, with that being said, I'm going to throw it over to Ethan and let him give an introduction to the DJI FPV system, and Mitch can jump in at any given time and throw it up.
Okay, well, so I guess I'll briefly go over the full size. You want me to do the full size system first or the Vista? We'll do the full size system first. Okay, so the full size air unit, the DJI system, it's going to come, depending on what package you buy, it's going to come with an air unit. That's that silver thing in there. 2 antennas. Comes with its own camera.
You muted your mic, Ethan.
Yeah, you're muted. We can't hear you, buddy. Ethan, you're muted. Oh, he pulled it out. Wait. Oh. Wait. Here, even better. Let's do this. Wait. Are you going to have to leave and come back? Okay, so, wait. Maybe he'll just start talking suddenly. Okay, I'm more interjected into this show than I expected to be, and I have no material.
Okay,
There he is.
There we go. Yeah, all right.
I pulled it out. So, but tell you what, Mitch, why don't you take over real second? I want to get the goggles real quick.
Okay.
He pulled it out. Now he's gonna get the goggles. Wow.
Okay. Well, Ethan was talking about the full size air unit, and there is the full size air unit. And for reference, this is a 3-inch quad. This is an Acrobrat, so it is pretty small. Now, if you try to fit this thing into most of the frames that have been around, usually you have to modify them a little bit. And in this quad, I basically had to move the flight stack up to the front in order. But you can usually get this in there. The new one he's going to talk about, the Caddx Vista, is a smaller unit. But the difference is that the air unit, the normal air unit, has an SD card in it and records 1080p 60 frame a second. Beautiful video from this, and of course the air unit comes with the little camera here, and you get just gorgeous goggle view video and recorded video. And if you were to go on YouTube and look at the first impression videos that a lot of the big time drone flyers, not little time like me, but the big guys who, when they first tried this thing, their responses are comical. They'll put the goggles up to their face, and then they'll just take them down, and they'll go, "Nah, no way, I can't." And most of them, or a lot of them, have become converts now to the DJI digital system. So it really, in my mind, has revolutionized the experience of flying FPV, and it happened kind of shortly after I started. So I got started flying the analog, and it was fun and it was okay, but it was nothing breathtaking. But when I put those DJI goggles on, it was like sitting in the front row of an IMAX theater. And once you get used to these things, it is tough to go back to analog.
And I can see Ethan's back.
You agree with what I said there, Ethan?
100%, 100%. I myself, I think I started flying FPV around June last year.
Oh, and you're like me.
Yeah, yep. And I actually, I got really, I did the standard thing that everybody says, practicing the sim and everything. I got a Taranis radio. A buddy of mine sold it to me for $100. I got a Taranis, set it up, did the simulator for about a whole month and a half, getting comfortable with the controls and how to actually fly. And then when I took it out for the first time, it was totally different. I in the dirt in 15 seconds. And what my thing was, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, is that if you're used to flying a camera drone, you're used to being able to sit right there. And if you want to come down, you just press down and you come down. Well, with the FPV drone, with the camera tilt, where you're always looking up, you have no horizon. If you fly flat, you have no horizon to gauge how high you are. So if you try to stay still and then come straight down, you're going to have no clue about how high you are, and you end up crashing. So I always tell people, keep flying forward, and if you want to come down, just pitch down, do a little dive, and then even out. So that's how I kind of taught myself to do it. But going to the DJI system, I noticed immediately my flying ability skyrocketed right as soon as I started flying with that, because I was so much more confident about what I could see. And that is the huge difference between the analog system and the DJI system. And, I just haven't really gone back. I still have a pair of my, these are HD3 Fat Sharks with rapid fire. And, they did well. And to be honest with you, when I switched from, I had a True D regular diversity, and when I switched to rapid fire, I actually didn't notice that much of a difference. If I was going to do it all over again, I probably wouldn't buy the rapid fire. I would stick with that $60 True D. But
quick quick jump in here just for a second. I got to do this real quick because I wanted to give a shout out to the people in the chat like I normally do. At the very beginning, Jody came in and was talking back and forth with Mitch. Mitch was saying hi. We've got 3X drones in the house. Back from the Skies in the house. Ron's in the house. And everybody. So as I go back down through the list, I can see FSU grad DeMarco's in the house. Arco Drone Solutions, glad to have you. We can see again. The grumpy vlogger Lori's in the house. Of course, he was getting a big kick out of laughing about us. Rick Halbert, glad to have you in the house. Ethan Mitchell talking to the chat. That's fun as always. David Smith said, "Hey guys," he's in the house. Rigor Mortis. If you didn't get a chance, go check out his test video if you didn't take it down already. It's kind of really unique. Thomas O'Sullivan, good to see you. Above and Beyond Drones, thank you, sir. Good to see you as well. Glad everybody's talking back and forth. Please back and forth and check out everybody's channel and support each other. So while I throw it right back to Ethan, I'm going to throw something up on a share to give the guys something else to throw into the discussion. Ethan, please go back to your discussion, sir.
All right. So getting back to let's talk about the goggles real quick. So these are like standard Fat Sharks that, people know, most people love. The Fat Sharks fit really, really well. But the image quality just isn't there. The field of view and the image quality that you get out of the DJI goggles is just awesome. It really does feel like you're sitting in a movie theater. And
like
the image, what's that?
No, said like you said, I brought it back up too late. I was trying to take a drink of Monster, trying to highlight you, but I was also trying to bring up the DCL game, the new game that everybody can. Hang on, here we go. Here we go.
So yeah, these are the DJI. You can mod them to take Fat Shark to a Fat Shark strap too, if you want to. I've also put some Fat Shark foam in there, so I get a better seal on my face, because that's probably one of the big downsides about those goggles is that they do not fit stock as well as a Fat Shark does.
So something quick for everybody. Has anybody tried this out? This new game that they just went live, yesterday?
No, I haven't really been in a sim since I started flying outside. So.
Okay. So, this is just something to learn with, something to start out with, something to play with. You can hook up your radio to it. I think Ed Ricker posted something about it also. So, hey, Bill! Bill's in the house. Anybody didn't know, this is also Bill. And if you haven't checked him out, he also has, check out the channel, Newfound Drone Productions. He also has a Facebook group by the same name. It's pretty cool. He posts a lot of cool pictures there. And I'm sorry, Ethan, I'll shut up.
No, keep going. I was going to say, Mitch, you want to jump in and add anything?
Well, a lot of guys have got their start with analog, and because of my glasses and my very strange prescription, which has prism correction, I cannot wear Fat Shark goggles. I'll see two images, one on top of the other, and in order to get diopters made to fix that, it would cost as much as the goggles. So I started out with the box goggles, the Vipers, and while they're good, they're not as good as the experience in your regular Fat Sharks. So for me, one of the biggest things about the DJI was they had to fit on top of my glasses, and they did, and that really changed the whole sport for me, and made my flying 10 times more enjoyable. Now, since I already had all of these analog quads that I'd built, and I also fly flying wings and fixed wing airplanes with FPV in them, I needed the analog. So I went ahead and actually did the mod to the goggles. And if you can see on the front of the goggles, there's a 3D printed faceplate that replaces the faceplate that comes on the goggles. And there's a bay that accepts a Fat Shark module, and then it just plugs in back around the back here. And that lets me use these DJI goggles both for the DJI digital stuff and for all the analog quads too. So it turned out, because it does fit over my glasses, that this became a real handy solution for me. And then rather than keep the battery in my pocket and run the wire up to it, I put the Furious FPV 18650 pack on the side, and that powers both the analog module and the thing. So
wow.
So that worked out pretty good. Now I got a one-stop solution for whatever I'm going to fly, whether it be airplanes, drones, digital, analog.
Now, does that feel weird on your head with the weight from that battery in that case, or no? Because I got rid of the battery on my Fat Sharks, and I love how it feels. So to see that is making me think, it looks it works, but I don't know if I want to do that myself.
Well, it does. These goggles are a little heavier than the Fat Sharks anyway to start with, so the weight doesn't make as much of a difference.
Oh, okay.
And if you just keep them tight enough on your head. Now, if I was going to wear these things for 2 hours at a stretch, it would be a consideration. But when you're wearing it for a 6, 7, 8 minute flight, I don't notice it. It doesn't bother me at all. And with my Bill, you'd appreciate this, with my nice slick head up here. If I try to rest the goggles up on my head, they always slide down. So I found that I have to wear a backwards baseball cap, and that solved all my problems. When I wear the backwards baseball cap, this thing gets something to purchase on up there.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I thought everybody would be. I like the way you had modified everything and put the other module in. Oh, wait, it's show and tell. Sorry.
Yep. So this
He's
one,
got the battery on there too.
Yeah, I put the Fat Shark. So I cut these so I could put the Fat Shark strap on there. So I don't have that top strap anymore.
That's a hot dog FPV strap, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, those are really popular.
But having a 4S LiPo on the side, that you definitely feel that. And I've been thinking about moving it to the back if I could find a strap there, or maybe sew something on in the back. But the biggest thing, because these goggles definitely are not what I would say comfortable. So what I've also done, I've also made I put 3D printed shims on the sides, and I also took Fat Shark foam and put them in there so it fits tighter to my face, and it is so comfortable right now. It's just as comfortable as my Fat Sharks.
DJI just came out with a foam insert that they sell, but from what I've seen, people don't think it's all that great. I don't have a problem as long as because it doesn't dig in anywhere that is annoying on my face. It has a little light leak, but those screens are so big and so bright in there that you don't notice the light leak. And I'll tell you, Ethan, when you fly analog with those DJI goggles, it's outrageous. It is so much better than an analog goggle would be, because the size of the screens, you get that big screen experience, and the DVR does such a tremendous job of recording the analog, the stuff that comes in through the AV that much better than the DVR in a Fat Shark.
Oh yeah, the DVR on the Fat Sharks is terrible. But that reminds me of going back to like why you would want to switch to like a digital system in the first place. So I just want to share my personal experience with analog. When I first started out and I first started building these drones, they were all analog and they flew great. My picture was decent, not by this standard, but before DJI was out. And I thought that this looks pretty good. I had a Runcam Eagle 2 camera, and I had a decent TBS VTX, the rapid fire and the Fat Sharks. And I was like, okay, this is probably as good as it's going to get. And I thought it looked good. Well, after like a few crashes, I started getting static whenever I would throttle up the motors, or sometimes my camera settings were all out of whack and I couldn't see anything. And then I just started to have nothing but problems. And so I started what they recommend, changing the ground pads or wiring it directly up to the VTX instead of going through the flight controller. I tried everything, and I just felt I was chasing problems when it came to my video feed. And, when you're flying FPV, that is your main thing. That's your connection to the drone, is what you can see. So when I started having problems like that, that's DJI came out. And I was wondering, will a digital system still have the same problems? And turns out it doesn't. Not at all. So you don't have to worry about any of that static interference. You don't have to worry about having electrical noise. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. It just looks great all the time.
Yeah, I agree. You don't get the noise in the video feed. Now you still have to be careful about electrical noise in your quad because it'll screw up your gyro and screw up the way the thing flies. But as far as what you see, that digital feed is 1,000%. It's there.
Yep, absolutely. Jumping
Uh-oh.
over.
We had Mitch just froze on us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it looks like he did.
Well, no, just keep rolling. Keep going.
Well, to add to what Ethan was saying about video transmitter problems, I guess I've been relatively lucky in that aspect that when I did my build, it was all clean. My video transmitter was all clean. Hell, I was out today. I had it at 1,000 milliwatts, and I was just cruising around. And it's clean, clear, really, really good. But I have gotten bind and fly models before that clearly I've seen something is not right. There's lines going through the video transmitter, or when I throttle up, the feed starts to get some noise in it. I've seen those issues before, and I do see people in the groups, they fight to get a clean video feed. I'm glad that whatever I did, whatever parts I chose, they were all good. And but you can end up spending a lot of time trying to solve a video transmitter problem, an analog video transmitter problem. Whereas I guess the DJI system is probably doing a lot of its own filtering too. Like even if your quad maybe got some noise after that crash happened or some electrical issue going on in there, maybe that whole unit is doing some filtering of its own that'll just keep that problem away from your camera, your video.
Well, the way like where a digital system works over the air is it makes it so it's not going to be susceptible to like noise like that anyway, because it's working off of like 1s and 0 packets, So if it doesn't, if it drops a packet, that's why you have that little delay. Or if it drops a packet, it's going to reduce the resolution, and that's when you start to get that pixelation. But you're still going to have something.
Would somebody that lives close to Mitch please go check and make sure he's okay? Because he looked like he was kind of stiff.
But the worst noise I ever had was my Acrobat build, and it was using the Caddx that 4K Tarsier, the dual thing. And after and it was flying great. I loved the look of it. And then I had a really hard crash on it. And then after that, every time I throttled it, I've got diagonal lines through the video, and I could never get rid of it.
See, so, I've heard of that problem, and I know some very experienced people like Andy RC, for example, who have dealt with video transmitters that have that exact issue, and they've even put them together with hardware that goes there. Like I think he had the problem with the Holy Bro Atlatl video transmitter, and he put it together with a Holy Bro FC and Holy Bro ESC and all that stuff, and he's back the line. So yeah, you can run up a tree trying to do a video transmitter. I think Mitch's back.
And I told him to check on you, Mitch. You look kind of stiff.
I got Jim here on the phone, above and beyond. Hey, Jim, how you doing? Hello. I think he hung up on. Spectrum Internet strikes again.
Okay.
I mean, I'm looking at the screen and everything froze. Virtually the whole thing locked up. And I said, oh no. So I actually had to go in and reboot. I tried to put a message in the chat, and that didn't work. And then I had to go reboot my internet router, believe it or not.
Oh, wow. But I told him, I said, please, somebody that knows Mitch, go check on him. He looks a little stiff.
Yeah, I got it. I hate it when that happens. I have my own nickname for Spectrum Internet, and it rhymes with what you sit on.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I think we're adult rated. You can say ass if you want to.
No, rectum. I call it rectum.
Okay, rectum. Gotcha. All right, good enough.
That's what I think of when I say the word spectrum. So
swing back to the DJI system, Mitch. So what you're saying is you believe that someone can just get those DJI goggles, get an analog module, and that's it? That you think that's better than Fat Sharks? Like, just you don't need your Fat Sharks anymore. We're at that point.
Well, I wanted to show you guys. I wanted to show you guys something that I went ahead. There's a number of different ways to mount that analog module. Whoa, hello, come on, come back to me. Focus. Thank you.
Focus, David, focus.
Listen, guys. This is professional show business here. Okay. There's a number of different ways the guys have been mounting that. Now, for my money, I think DJI should have included an analog receiver in the goggles. It's not like they don't have the technology. If you remember their RE, the racing edition goggles, that had the analog receiver in it. Why not? And just as soon as we all get them and spend all our money, they'll come out with version 2 of these things that'll have an analog receiver built into them. But that was the gripe initially. Everybody was saying, man, they're just wonderful, but I got all these analog quads. I'm not giving up analog. They need analog. So then, they had the AV input, but the latency on that was bad, and it didn't have a DVR, and there were other reasons why it wasn't so hot. Well, DJI jumped on that, and they got it fixed. They fixed the latency problems in the analog. They made it so that the DVR recorded the analog, and the DVR analog recordings are gorgeous. They're beautiful. So then it became, how do you mount the analog module on those goggles? Well, iFlight was the first to come out with a replacement faceplate, and when you talk about a faceplate, it's, one of these things. This is, it had a module bay in it that you could put your module in, and you had to take your goggles all completely apart, which is a job. It voided the warranty. And there was 2 wires. You need a wire for the video feed and a wire for the power. So then some enterprising guys came up with a way to make a faceplate where the wires came out the side, and then you put plugs on them and just plug them into the AV in and get the power for the module. And that's the mod that I did. Where, if you can see that up there, it's just sitting right on the front. I don't know if that looks any good or not, but it's just sitting right on the front. And then the power, so I didn't have to void my warranty. There's only 2 screws that take that faceplate off, and that's not really opening up the goggles. The other way, you have to tear off, it's crazy. Joshua Bardwell made a video out of it. But right about the time I was busy doing my mod and making a video about it, this UAV came up with this gizmo. And I bought one because it was $12. You can't go out to dinner for $12. And what this is it's a little board like this, and it mounts right on the side of the goggles, and there's 2 screw holes here, and the bracket for the strap on the side. You just screw this thing right on the side, and then you plug the module into it, and it comes with these little cords with the plugs already on them. So you just plug a couple of plugs in, mount this on the side, stick the module in, and you've got the analog conversion, and it costs $12.
Wow.
So that, and everybody's got them. I got this from Race Day Quads. So for $12, you can do this mod. Now, since the problem with this was that there wasn't anything that really held the module in. And by the time you get done hanging antennas, all over these modules, they can get kind of floppy. But in the meantime, somebody designed a 3D printed case for this that has 4 different parts to it, and that solved that problem, and that's on Thingiverse, and anybody with a 3D printer can print that. So I'm in the process. I printed one. I just downloaded it yesterday, and I was going to print up the pieces just to check it all out and see how well this thing might work. And so yeah, in answer to your original question, if I was just getting into this now, you have to ask yourself, of course, if you're getting into FPV, the burning question is, just how obsessive, and Ethan will know what I'm talking about, just how nuts do you think you're going to go? Or do you think it's just going to be kind of it might be fun, and you fly a couple times and you go, well, been there, done that, what's next? Or you're going to be like me and go absolutely OCD on it. And in that case, yeah, it would be worth the money of buying the DJI system and the analog module, and you have it both ways. But if you don't know if you're going to like it, and this is, John, I told you about the live stream I'm doing on Sunday now, the FPV workshop. The whole purpose of that is to try to help guys find out inexpensively if this is something that they might like. I know a lot of guys start out in this FPV stuff, and it's not as easy as you think it is.
Right. Yeah. If I would like to jump on that, I couldn't agree more. And finding out if you're going to like it at an inexpensive point can be difficult, because I think you could piece together a fairly inexpensive drone, but when it comes to a goggle, that's going to be that trick question, because I would say 90% of your experience is the goggles, is what you see. And if you don't have a good feed, or the video is kind of static, or the video is crap, you're not going to like it, no matter, and that's going to just compound that learning curve that it takes to actually learn how to fly. Now, if you can see crystal clear, it's going to be an awesome experience. I can't stress enough how much the DJI system has made a dramatic impact on my flying. Just because you can see so clear.
I agree 100%. I was using the Vipers, which are good box goggles, but when I put I was one of those guys. If they had a camera on me when I first put those goggles on, you would have gotten that same reaction. Yep. You would have got that. No way. No, this isn't, no. You've seen guys, from who was it, Bardwell and Nurk and what's his name? The whole Rotor Riot crew, all of them they've gone, not only have they gone nuts, they're sponsored by DJI, and now that's all you ever see them flying.
Oh, yeah.
I actually you can. Oh, sorry about that.
No, I was going to say, I can't wait to see where this goes. And anybody that's on the fence about like DJI just because you don't like the company, this setup is clearly being developed by a different group than that does the drone parts. Just because they're not open source, but they are very, very close to it. They've shared their license with Caddx, which is really shocking. Any kind of discrepancy or things the FPV community has complained about, they've addressed it in a firmware and relatively quickly. So it's definitely a very different group that we're used to seeing with the camera drones.
Let me add to that. One of the big gripes that we all had when the DJI system first came out was that there was no way to get OSD information into the goggles. And when you're flying FPV, you want to know what your battery is, you want to know what your RSSI is, you want to know maybe what your altitude is, what your throttle position, and there was no way to do that. And the drone community let that be known. And it didn't take very long before they actually came out with a firmware update that allowed us to see not all of the OSD information available yet, but some, about 20 different items. So they're working on that. And right after that happened, the iNav group, they came out with a way where even on my iNav fixed wings and quads, I can now get my OSD information into the goggles. So it's terrific.
Oh,
What
yeah.
was that? What was this?
Oh, I was telling Jim, I told him earlier, I said, wait, where's it at? Where did I say it, Jim? Did you see me? Yeah, where did I say it? I said, thanks for calling, see? And I said, and then I was like, props, man, good job. So see, when I do that in the background and you see me just kind of wave at somebody, I hate I know how people love hearing their name called out. Like, good to see a grumpy blogger, Connie Shutter, good to see you in the house. Metro
you call my name out?
Drones, Metro Drone, above and beyond. Okay, something
Oh,
else.
Metro's here. Bill, is he here?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
I
say.
said, hey, Bill, how you doing?
But see, when you all get on a roll and you're really giving out good information, it kind of sucks for me to go, hey, I'm going to be Bill again and butt in and give me some room. I'm going to call
That's
everybody
okay.
name. But yeah, so that way I can kind of, I can keep the show going and kind of give everybody a shout out and they can know I'm, hey, and if anybody else sees it, they can wave too. Or we could do like those guys do when they're doing it. Tonight's brought to you by Monster Energy. Uh-oh. We've got all kinds of weird noises going on. But
no,
yeah.
that was me. I pulled up a video, and I was going to show you. If you want to see this, and I have them here, if anybody would like to see.
We would like to see
I
all
was
this
going to
stuff.
show you, Ethan. I don't know. Do you have any videos there that you can show? Because I got a couple queued up here. I was going to show the difference between the feed of the digital system as recorded by the DJI goggles, and then the analog system recorded with the DJI goggles. So this here is the digital feed.
It's kind of funny that he says this because wait, Mitch has something for you in a minute.
So this is what you see in your goggles, and as big as that picture looks, that's how big it looks in your goggles. It's just that clear. Does that look about right to you, Ethan?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Yeah, definitely. But and super minimal breakup. Carlos is really riding you hard in the chat.
Oh, me? Carlos is, yeah. Carlos is like my co-host half the time on my show.
Yeah, that's people who don't realize. Back from the Sky is Carlos. He's the gentleman that you see on the show with Mitch quite a lot. They're always talking about FPV and stuff. So,
but this is what the I think I even did a loop here. See, I'm an old guy. I'm not a ripping tree slamming type FPV flyer. This is the kind of style I like, and the cruising style, and for me, this makes the FPV system incredibly enjoyable. And I'll go out to the park. I'll just take this thing and cruise all over the park about 10 feet off the ground like that, and it makes me feel like I'm flying. It isn't like I'm flying a model thing. It makes me actually feel like I'm in the thing. So that's what that looks like. And let me find here you go. This is an analog. This is an analog feed recorded on the DJI goggles. Now this is an iNav quad. It's got all that navigation information in there. You don't need to have all that in there, but you can see the difference between analog and digital right there. And that's about as good, I guess, an analog recording as you're going to get. I also got a couple of flights that I recorded flying around inside my house, recorded with the DJI goggles. Now this is analog from a Tiny Hawk, so that's a pretty good image, but nothing like the DJI digital image that you see in the goggles. Anyway, I thought I'd show a little of that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
There we go.
Ethan, you got your stuff ready?
Well,
I'm going to share screen.
I'm going to share a screen, but I want to talk about the Vista real quick.
All right.
Because all the videos I have are on the Vista. So Caddx recently released called the Vista, which is a DJI compatible VTX antenna and camera system, almost like basically a mini air unit is what it is. And it's the stack itself is 30 by 30, or let's see, it's 28 by 28, I think. Hold on. The holes are 20 by 20, but the stack itself is about 28 by 28, and it's about 14 millimeters high. So it's significantly smaller than a full-size air unit. It doesn't have the onboard DVR, so you're not going to get 1080p 60 frames per second. So if you want to do any recordings, you have to carry a GoPro or record it through the goggles. It does use the same camera that the full-size system has, and I believe it's about 30 grams lighter. The beauty of this is that it can fit into these tiny drones. This is a 3-inch quad that I built. It's got crossfire, DJI system, and it weighs under 250 grams. And it flies just as good as my 5 inches, other than it's really, really light, so the wind affects it quite a bit. But I wanted to share with you guys some video that I recorded today. And this is all in basically the DJI goggles. The cameras have 3 different picture profiles. They have racing, standard, and LED. I don't really like racing too much, and I go back and forth between LED and standard. The first video I want to show you guys is with LED. And I also like to fly in 4:3. So when I record it post, I can also stretch it out to do super view. So let me get that pulled up. Just bear with me for a second.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. Anybody have any questions or any additions that you'd like to throw out here while we're... Okay, since we've got a little brief pause here, if anybody hasn't already seen it or doesn't already know about it, Philly Drone Life lost his Mavic Mini. Yeah, so he posted a video. He puts it up for everybody to see.
I really need that. You know that Homer Simpson gif where he's just backing into the bushes. What I'm talking about? That's what I need right now with respect to that. But I do hope that he finds his drone and that it landed in the best place possible, because that's just terrible. That would make me so upset. So I hope he finds it.
All right.
It's going to be, I think it's going to be very hard for him to find that.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the Caddx Vista on a little 3-inch drone today, and you could just see the clarity. You guys may not see this in the actual live stream, but if you go back and do the playback where after it does all its processing, you'll see just how crisp and great this looks. Now, it is very bumpy. This isn't a GoPro with hyper smooth, so it doesn't have any onboard stabilization. But you can see right there, I stretched it out to a 16:9. With some curves, and it gives it that super view look. Now this is the LED picture profile. So it's very contrasty. It's got a lot of saturated colors. I don't use this one. Sometimes I use this one, but not too often. I like the standard picture profile a little bit better because it gives you a little bit more flexibility to push the colors around. Now this is the standard picture profile, and you can see how it's kind of flat.
Still looks sharp though. You could do a lot with it in post.
Well, you'll see that in a second.
Oh, sorry.
See?
Yeah.
So that's just a little bit of color in there. But it actually looks, in the goggle feed, I know Mitch and I were talking before the show, the full-size air unit can do onboard recording with an SD card, and it records at 1080p at 60 frames per second. It also records it's got an onboard mic too, so you get all the propeller noise in it too. But if you have like a clean DVR, if you got clean footage coming to the goggles, like you don't have any of the, the static and stuff if you're flying around trees and everything, it's really hard to tell the difference. The quality that you get on the goggles is really, really good.
The one thing you have to remember, if you're really interested in they have 2 different modes. They have what they call a low latency mode and a high quality mode. And the difference is the low latency mode is 120 frames a second coming back to the quad, and the high quality is 60 frames a second. The difference in latency may be from 30 milliseconds to about 45 milliseconds roughly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not that good a good enough pilot that we're doing that tight enough stuff to notice it, and I don't think most people would notice 40 milliseconds. But if you want a good clean DVR recording, if you fly it in the 120 frame a second and the low latency mode, you're going to get some pixelating, and you're going to get some fuzzy sides or fuzzier image. Have you noticed that too, Ethan?
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah, if you want clean DVR, I would say turn focus mode off and run or high or HD mode. Yep. Yeah,
and that's how I fly. I fly with focus mode off and in HD mode.
Right. Yeah, I with my bigger drones that I'm carrying a GoPro, I usually leave it on low latency and focus mode. But I'll be honest with you, I haven't really noticed a difference between low latency and HD. I can't tell a difference. So
well,
I'm
if our name was Mr. Steele, we might.
Well, yeah. If you're,
but
racing,
my level of flying and doing big slow things and big slow loops and stuff, whether I'm 2 inches late to the turn is not going to make much of a difference to me.
Right.
So what output power do you guys have your, I guess either your Vista or your air units, what are you guys normally flying?
I fly 700.
Yeah, that's what I do too. I actually did the unlock on all of my drones. I have all it is like a file that you put on the SD card and that goes in your goggles. So, I mean, I have it on, but I haven't really noticed a huge difference between 700 and like 1,000 or 1,200. So I just, for heat purposes, I just kind of leave it on 700. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't flown far enough where that's been an issue. But I'm not. Me neither. I'm not a long range person anyway. I mean, the crossfire will go way farther than what the goggles will do anyway. So, yeah, I haven't really noticed it.
Hey, John, what's the air zone you're talking about?
What's what?
You mean the air unit?
Did you mention the term air zone? What are you saying?
Air unit.
Air unit. What's an air unit?
That's this thing that goes in here.
Yeah. Isa's showing you there. See that little gray box in there with the camera? That's all DJI stuff. That's all DJI's hardware.
Yep.
Okay, that's just a brand name type of thing.
Well, that's what DJI calls this module. That's right there. And that's what your antennas hook into, and that's what your cameras. It's basically a VTX all in one.
Video transmitter. Yep. That's what gets the video to the DJI goggles from that drone.
Yep.
Okay.
So you put that in there, and it's all set for you.
So that's a key component.
Yes, that's the biggest difference between the full size DJI system. If you could see that, you could see how much smaller the Caddx Vista is, but they do pretty much the same exact thing.
Okay.
Gotcha. This one doesn't
have the size, right?
It's about it's yeah.
Now does the Vista system have the receiver in it in case you got the DJI transmitter? Yeah. So another thing, Ron, that air unit does is it also is if you have the DJI transmitter with the sticks, then that air unit is also the receiver for that too.
Okay.
Now most of us
does this DJI system, does it come in one kit or do you have to piecemeal it all together?
It comes two different ways. Well, you can buy individual pieces, but they have two basic packages. One is the complete system with the transmitter and the sticks, an air unit for the quad and the goggles. They have another package for people that have their own radios, guys that have been flying and have all the either Crossfire or Free Sky. And that package has a pair of goggles and two air units in it.
Okay.
Right, and Ron, the controller or the transmitter that the DJI package, if you buy it all together, it would be very familiar to you. It's basically what? It's basically a Phantom 4 controller, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you might be right at home. If you were to buy something like that, you would have that feel right in your hand that you already know. So.
Right, but this system for advanced user, not a beginner, correct?
I don't know.
It'd be easy to build because everything's built into that one little box. Building a quad would be very simple, especially if you buy one of the new flight controllers that has a plug on it.
Right.
Plugs directly into the DJI unit. So basically you have to solder motor wires on, solder a battery wire on, plug in one plug, and away you go.
Yeah.
And Ron, you know what? They do have bind and fly units as well out there now. I don't know which ones are best, but they do have bind and fly DJI FPV system compatible drones out there too. If building is not your thing.
Wow, so they make it real easy to get started.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's more and more of that every day. And DJI is so far ahead in this. And I never believed when I first heard the rumor of it not too long ago. I said, "Nah, that's just a rumor. It's not going to happen." Bam! All of a sudden, it was just there. Ethan, you remember that? It just
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
one day everybody was saying, "Nah, it's a pipe dream," and the next day, 30 different YouTube guys were and had it for a month and already had their reviews in the can. And
Oh, I remember when it came out, there was a lot of doubt about it.
yeah.
Well, I was just shocked that they enabled the integration of the air unit into like a beta flight controller. I was shocked.
Yeah,
I was shocked too.
I thought for sure they're going to have to buy their flight controller. You know what I mean? They could have
And
easily
now
done
it
that.
integrates, and now it's integrating more and more with this stuff. Like I say, I was able to take an iNav powered, flight controller running iNav and integrate it with the DJI system now.
Oh yeah.
I mean, DJI has been, at least on their GPS bird end, obviously not very open source, and they don't even really respect open source licenses either. They've gotten in trouble multiple times for not providing pieces of code that they were legally supposed to provide to people because that's what the license said. So they've had their ass handed to them on more than one occasion. So now we see a completely different side of them where not only are they embracing the open source flight controllers, they're working with them. They're taking their platform and they're actually working with them. And that's another reason why I've sat back and I've waited and watched to see how this would all play out, because I didn't want to spend $500 on goggles that wasn't going to give me a beta flight OSD. No way. And I didn't know what way they were going to go. So it's been good to see that they're trying to make everything play nice.
Now, John, it's still a little bit. Have you got the OSD working in your goggles yet, Ethan, from the DJI? It's a different experience.
I've gotten most of it working.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a different experience.
Can you guys elaborate on that? Because I want to know more. Like how is it different?
Well, it's different because, for example, when you record the analog flight, you record the digital flight with the OSD overlaid on your goggles. That OSD does not show up on the recording, whereas in an analog recording it does. And the font that they use isn't as bold and bright, so I tend to put mine down the left side where I have the margin, because I fly the 4x3, so I can read it. Because when I start putting them over the top of the image, I have a harder time reading them. But the information is there. Half of it, the one thing they're still missing is the warning information, and that's the one that really, you can get the flight mode to know if you're in angle mode or acro. You can get battery, RSSI, stuff like that. You can get GPS latitude and longitude. Unfortunately, it doesn't record that. And that's the beauty of having GPS information in your goggle recording on an analog quad. If you lose your quad, you go back and look at the recording and then you'll find the last known GPS location. But you won't be able to do that with the goggle recording on DJI. So there are some shortcomings, but they're working on it, and they're up to their 4th firmware update already on these things. And I have a funny feeling that they're addressing that. For some reason, they seem to be real excited about this FPV stuff. I'm surprised that they're taking this much of an interest in it.
Yeah, especially given all the new, upcoming possible stuff and all that. But let me just clarify something. So what you're saying is there some sort of is whitelist the right word for OSD features that the goggles can display? So not everything, if I were to go in beta flight and enable everything to show on my DJI goggles, that it wouldn't show. There's only a certain list of things. Okay. Yeah. See
that list is on their website somewhere. I saw it once, but
so they have a white list basically of the stuff, and mostly I guess all the important stuff is there.
Well, except for warnings.
Except for the warnings, yeah, that's surprising.
And the warnings is kind of an important thing to have, I think. Mm-hmm. Tells you if you can't arm, especially if you got a GPS on the thing. And it won't arm. At least if you got the warning, it'll be telling you waiting for GPS.
Right.
Otherwise you wouldn't know why. You wouldn't know why it isn't arming.
Yeah, definitely. So if you go through the firmware notes that's on their website for the air units, it'll tell you what's enabled, what's not, and they've been slowly adding things. The GPS was a big one. They started out with basically it just had battery voltage. So, but it gave you battery voltage anyway if you had the air unit connected to a UART pad. So it's like the DJI goggles have their own OSD inside of them, and then you can have the Betaflight OSD on top of that too.
Okay, so I'm learning now. See, I did not know that. I did not know that there was a little whitelist of those OSD features. So that's something new to me.
You do get satellite count, which most of my quads have GPSs in them. I like the GPS rescues. So having the satellite count was important because that would tell me I'd know when I could armor instead of continually trying to arm the quad. The air unit has 6 wires coming out of it. John, this is for you, John. The air unit has 6 wires coming out of it.
6 wires, okay.
6 wires. 2 of them are for power and ground. 2 of them are for your radio receiver if you're using their transmitter.
Okay.
Okay.
Like S-Bus.
And that would go to an S-Bus pad, an inverted S-Bus pad.
Okay.
And the other 2 wires actually allow the air unit to communicate with the flight controller through a UART using MSP. Okay. So, in Betaflight, there's a switch that says MSP. So it's a protocol. So what you would do, and what that does, when you have it hooked up through the flight controller to MSP, the air unit knows when you arm the quad, which is terrific because it automatically starts the recordings for you on both the goggles and the air unit by arming the quad. And that's how the air unit gets the OSD data through that same MSP UART.
Gotcha. So in a way, I guess it's sort of like FreeSky Smart Port, but not really.
Yeah, similar. But now when you look at the number of manufacturers that are coming out with flight controllers that just have a 1 6-pin plug in the side,
just for the DJI system,
just plug into the air unit. There goes all of that, hooking up radios, hooking up VTXs, hooking up cameras. You do nothing. You put the air unit in there. There's a little ribbon cable. Plug it into the air unit. Plug it into the flight controller. Hook up your motor wires and your battery wire, and you're done. You're flying.
Ron, are you hearing that? The DJI system is making things easier than ever. You got to get it sometime.
Okay,
you got to give FPV a try sometime, man. They're making it super easy.
If they had a ESC where you could just plug in the motors, you'd be done.
They'll probably have it, and they'll probably. It won't be long, I think, before they actually are selling their own quad. They may make a deal with some of the manufacturers of the flight controllers and motors and things. But I have a funny feeling they're might be a little on the expensive side. But for a lot of guys, the convenience of not having to learn how to build or learn how to solder and do all that stuff.
Oh, you mean it'll be a ready to fly kit?
I wouldn't be surprised to see DJI come out with some kind of a quad that.
So I should wait a little bit then.
I see we've got like a little Mavic Mini sub chat going on here.
Yeah.
Well, we're not trying to disrail the real show here. It's just a side talk.
No, that's okay.
It's what the chat's talking about
every day.
Yeah, well, I'm the one who brought up, so it's my fault.
Well, no,
it's what the chat's interested in.
Remember, I brought it up when I talked about Philly's Flyway. Now everybody's talking about how the Mavic Mini is undependable. But hey, take a look at it, guys. It has small motors. It's not meant to fly super high up in the sky. It's not a Mavic 2 Pro with big motors on it that can ride through the wind. It's a little toy with GPS and a nice camera. So you just got to understand it's not meant to, especially in Philly, man, where you got wind gusts like 50 miles an hour whipping through those.
That's not what got him. What got him was the fact that it's a Wi-Fi drone and he was flying 3,000 plus feet away with a Wi-Fi drone in a city with 10 million Wi-Fi routers gone.
Repeaters all over.
Yeah.
Okay, so why did the return to home fail?
something went wrong. It actually got a signal to reset the home point. I was watching it. Okay, so what happened? Right in the middle of his flight, it said the home point has been reset. Look at it on the map, and I said, "Oh, Mike, you're screwed now."
How about this? I'll give you a conspiracy theory. They know Mikey's in town, and they're testing new tech, and they stole his drone.
Yeah, right.
I don't know, but the problem is the reason that I don't think he'll ever find it is because the drone was out of touch with his controller for so long that the last known position that his controller had for it is where it sent him to find the lost quad. But the quad was long since gone from that point. He had been out of, in order to get the GPS information from the quad, the receiver needs, the controller needs to be connected.
Right, and it wasn't. So it just went. Yeah.
I was telling the guys in chat, I just flew my Mini on Monday in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I flew over the tallest lighthouse in New Jersey, but I mean, I only flew it 150 feet high and probably no more than 500 feet away from me. So, I mean, returning home wasn't even a question. I mean, it was right in front of me. I could just landed on the street and picked it up. I mean, but no connection.
It's a little guy and it's Wi-Fi power. You just have to have reasonable expectations for it, basically.
Bill said that in there, and I repeated Bill's thoughts. Don't fly the Mavic Mini like it's the Mavic Pro too.
Well, to me, it's basically DJI's answer to all the toys in the toy market. It's saying, hey, we're going to put our inexpensive stuff, but good stuff on a toy type drone. I mean, the motors are not that big. You can look at it and tell it's not that stout of a drone. It's basically meant to be between, say, 100 and 200 feet max in the air, maybe 400, 500 feet away. That's it. It's the genuine selfie drone like the Spark was going to be, but as we soon found out, the Spark was a little tank, and everybody was doing all kinds of stuff with it. And
you know what? Go ahead.
I miss the Spark for that fact.
I was going to say, you know what? And, people talk about how, I do see people saying, oh, it flew away and all this stuff. But there's also a lot of people out there who are just brand new at this, and this is their first drone. So they're going to make stupid mistakes. I'm not talking about like Philly drama. I'm talking about like just people who are new to drones and Facebook groups and stuff. And they say, "Oh, it flew away." Well, what was your wind at the time?
We're gonna have to make a new T-shirt and give Courtney credit for it.
That reminds me. So this is a little thing I'd like to add. To anybody thinking about flying FPV, learning how to fly, if you're already a camera guy, or if you do commercial work and you're thinking about adding something in, So we have the Mavic 2 Pros back there. So its top speed is probably about 40, 45 miles per hour. Mm-hmm. So if it gets gusty, it can handle it. Okay.
It can come back.
If you get into like crazy winds and you're like, there's no, I don't want to fly that. You can still fly one of these guys. This thing is like if you think about like a drag car or a race car versus like a Honda Civic, that's basically, this thing can do 80 plus miles per hour with the GoPro on it. And so if it's windy, it doesn't matter. It's going to truck right through it, no problem.
Did you see the FPV thing at Daytona? Did you see the shots they got? They got a crew flying an FPV drone at the Daytona race, 80 plus miles an hour.
Oh yeah. Like
I was watching the race and I saw those shots and I said, "Holy cow, they got an FPV out there."
Right. Like this little guy, it's 250. It's less than 250 grams. Same weight as the Mini, and I would have no doubt flying this thing in heavy winds at all. It's going to, granted, the footage is going to be bouncy, but it's going to truck right through it, no problem.
Yeah,
that drone that they were flying at Daytona. You know what kind of camera it had on it? I read an article about it. It had a GoPro Hero 4 on it. Yeah, 720p and a transmitter that sent that 720p signal back to the TV people.
Interesting.
So that was a GoPro Hero 4, which is 2-3 years old.
I actually think that's going to be DJI's like goal with these is you're going to see like modules coming out that'll plug into like a television or like an audio system network that can like put out the feed live. And
I-
if they can
yeah.
incorporate like stabilization into that as well, like take whatever stabilization they have on the on the Osmo, because the circuit board, this thing is mostly battery. If they have the circuitry in this and put it into this guy, I think you would have a win-win all the way around. You wouldn't even need to carry a GoPro, because this thing without the GoPro is ridiculous.
But you still got to learn how to fly them.
Still have to learn how to fly.
That's the difference. You got to learn
Still
how
have
to
to learn
fly
how to
'em.
fly. But
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. Now that I've gotten significantly, I've had a lot of practice. I've gotten significantly better flying, like cinematic, like you would get from a DJI drone, is actually not that challenging.
No, you saw that clip I played for you, me flying down the road at the park there. It's easy. It's easy. I like to try to be smooth and fly around like that. But
Yeah, if you start getting into dives and like flying proximity and that kind of stuff, now that becomes more
Yeah.
challenging. But
Did you see
yeah,
what they're saying in the chat? Mike was saying that they announced that it was a Mavic for the race. But Dan Lloyd came up with a really good point. How'd they get that Mavic in the air, since that was probably a no-fly zone?
oh, they had
around the race?
they had a whole article about it. It's a company called Beverly Hills Aerials, and they actually showed a picture of the drone. It was an FPV drone with a GoPro Hero 4 on top, and it said in the article that it took them an amazing, tremendous effort to get all of the waivers and the licenses and and everything they needed to be able to do it legally, and they also had to fly over just a certain area of the infield where there weren't people. If you notice, they were always going back and forth over that same area of the infield. So they had a lot of restrictions on them. But it wasn't a Mavic. It was an 80-mile-an-hour FPV drone. And God, I had the article. What did I did? I save that. I had a picture of the drone in there, and it was kind of a hokey looking, blotched together looking thing.
Yep. I've actually doing some weddings and commercial work that I do. I've had quite a few people ask me about the FPV stuff, and I'm starting to get where people want it. They want it incorporated into their photography. So, I think blending the two drones, a camera drone with an FPV drone, is gonna be great. The only thing that is lacking right now is the camera drones. The cameras are so much better than what we can put on the FPV drone right now. That's the only thing keeping us behind. I mean, the GoPros look great, the Osmo Action looks great, but it's still not like a Phantom 4 Pro. It's not the Mavic 2 Pro. It's not like an Inspire level. So,
what I did? I took my Mavic 2 Pro out to the park a couple weeks ago, and I put the gimbal mode into FPV instead of follow. Have you ever done that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I started flying, and if you practice enough with that, you can you're not going to do the flips and loops and big, but the flying where the camera tilt follows the turns, you can do that with a Mavic 2 and get some pretty neat looking footage. The only problem is that the camera only tilts when you move the roll stick.
Right.
And that doesn't turn the drone. That
Right.
doesn't make the drone turn and makes the drone go sideways. They
Yep.
should have put that tilt on. They should have put the tilt on the yaw stick.
Yep. The Paradanafi does that now, and it's actually on the yaw stick.
Yeah, it belongs on the yaw stick. And I didn't know if there was a setting in there where you could change that or not, but I found that you could get the same effect by moving both sticks together, which is what you normally do when you're flying FPV anyway. You got to be on both the sticks.
Did you also know, while we're talking about the Mavic 2 Pro, if you go into the settings and change the video stream from HD to standard, it's lower latency.
Yeah, that I knew. I knew that from the. I got a pair of white goggles. I
yeah,
when I had the white goggles. Yeah,
I've noticed
In fact,
flying.
that was-
I was going to say, I've noticed flying FPV has actually made me better at flying proximity with the camera drones.
Oh, no doubt. You get more ballsy because you're used to it. You don't rely as much on the obstacle avoidance.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
right.
Yeah.
Well,
But I agree with you.
Oh no, go.
I was going to say I agree with you that having if you're a professional aerial photographer, having the skills and FPV drone with a high quality camera on it adds a hell of a lot to your bag of tricks. And interestingly enough, the smoothest, if you notice on all these FPV Cine quads that they're building now, they're all small. They're all 3-inch drones. And I've noticed that this little 3-inch Acrobrat that I have gives me, without a doubt, the smoothest video of any of the quads. And the 7-inch quads are the hardest ones to make smooth. I built I built this thing. This is a 7-inch. It's a GEP RC 7-inch frame, and it's got the air unit in it. And I thought, boy, this would make a great cinematic quad because it's so big and it'd be so smooth. I can't get it to fly anywhere near as smooth. I've been tuning on it, trying to smooth it out, but that little 3-inch seems to be the ticket.
I'm going to have to give you a link to a friend of mine that lives up here in Seattle. He's actually been on the show before, and his name's Benson Kalahar, and he makes some of the most incredible cinematic footage you've ever seen with an FPV drone. He's really good at it. He'd probably get with you and talk to you about maybe tuning your larger one. But I think he uses a 10-inch. Isn't that what he uses?
Was it 10? No, I thought it was 7. I thought he used 7-inch.
Okay,
7
maybe
inch.
so. And
and it's just incredible. A matter of you have to just I'm learning tuning now. I mean,
it's a tough thing to tune.
It's a whole science, First of all, you have two different things. You're dealing with filters, number one, or you're dealing with PID tuning, number two.
Yep,
and it could
absolutely.
be either the filters or the PIDs that are causing your oscillations and everything.
Also, your flight controller too. Well, I switched over to the Caddx flight controllers, and that's made a huge difference. Yep, and I've gone to low pitch props on just about all my quads now. So the lower pitch with that Caddx flight controller. I'm also using the RPM filter with a Betaflight 1 or 4.1.
4.1, yeah.
Yeah, but it's
I've
all of them are smooth now.
I've put that on a couple of the quads, upgraded to that.
Yeah,
and,
the actual 3-inch was actually pretty rough until I put a lower pitch props on it, and now it's just as smooth as the 5 and the 6 inches are.
Really? I've found that I've got 2 3-inch quads, and they're the smoothest. They're the smoothest ones that I have, and that's another thing. Tuning these things is a science. It's an art. And a science. And if you watch all these videos on how to tune quads, and when you're all done watching the video, you come away with more questions than you had going in.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, my first FPV drone I bought, it was a bind and fly. That was 2016. It was early 2016. And if I think about just the evolution of that to now, it's always changing. It's always changing. Back then we were running clean flight. With clean flight, PIDs were king. Like, you had to really adjust PIDs. And there were actually like 10 different PID profiles loaded on that bind and fly drone from pro pilots. Then Betaflight became the main thing. And there came this point where you didn't need to play with PIDs too much. PIDs weren't a big deal. So I had to delete all those profiles, and it was more about the rates. It's more about the set point weight and all that stuff. Now we've got like you said, the RPM filters, and I just jumped from 3.5.7 to 4.1 on my build. So I am just now playing with RPM filters and the slider. I'm figuring it all out. I'm going out, flying, testing it, moving the slider again. So it's always changing. 6 months later, there might be something else different that you need to look into. So it's just a lot. It really is. It's a lot.
It is. The good news, however, is that the default PIDs that are coming with these newer, every time a new version of Betaflight comes out, the default PIDs seem to be getting better and better and require less fooling with. In fact, most of my quads, for the kind of flying I do, they fly more than good enough. And I figure if I start fooling with some of that stuff, I'll just make it worse. So I pretty much stick to the defaults. I'll play with the rates because the rates are what makes kind of tailors the quad to your style of flying. But
yeah, the rates, the expo, all
when
that.
you can buy I just picked up one of those little Tiny Hawk 2s, and this little Tiny Hawk 2 feels like a 5-inch quad.
It's fun, right?
It's absolutely incredible. You throw a little battery in it, take it outside, and other than the fact that you don't have that, it doesn't have that fling. It doesn't have the inertia when you throw it into something. But other than that, it goes where you point it. It rolls. It flips. It's incredible.
This is a Tiny Hawk 2, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, the 2. Yeah,
If you like
camera.
that, man, get the Tiny Hawk Freestyle.
I heard that. Dude. Yeah, I like the Tiny Hawk 2 because it can fly indoor, and at the park where I fly every Thursday morning, the old guys, all the old farts with the little tiny indoor RC airplanes get there. So I go over there with my little Tiny Hawk and get to fly all around in the gym.
Oh, okay.
And that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. But yeah.
So I get a question a lot. It's probably the question you guys get a lot too. Starting out flying, what would be your first drone to do? A tiny whoop, 3-inch, 5-inch, 6-inch, what?
Oh, I would.
Really loud.
Yeah, that was really loud, dude.
Wait.
Who's? What is that I hear?
Maybe that's the Tiny Hawk.
No, that's a cheer system.
I reckon. I tell if you want to start right, I just get a Tiny Hawk or get a Tiny Hawk 2.
Cat told me to get the Tiny Hawk 2.
Yeah, get the Tiny Hawk 2. Get a goggles, and you can get it depends again. Like I said, if you think you're the kind of guy that's really going to get hooked, and we all know who we are. All those of us with that addictive type of person. I know for sure after 50 years of flying model airplanes, I know what kind of hooked I get. Then you might want to spring for a good set of goggles and a good radio, or even maybe the DJI system. But of course, you need analog for the little tiny whoops. I would go for a decent radio, maybe a Jumper T16. What do you think of that, John? The Jumper T16?
You know what? Jumper T16, I guess if I had to buy a new radio today, I would probably buy the Jumper. It's definitely a good radio. I've been looking at that TBS Tango 2.
Yeah,
but you can't fly with that.
But
if you got a Tiny Hawk, you're screwed. It's only Crossfire. See, so that's to me. If you're 100% Crossfire and never fly anything else, that's great. And for the money, you could almost have a second radio. It's pretty cheap. Yep. But I started with the FreeSky 7S, the more expensive one that had the whole. And I didn't. I mean, it's a good radio, but I didn't like the way it felt. It didn't feel like an RC transmitter to me after all. Whereas the Jumper T16, the size and shape and feel of it is more like a Futaba radio that you'd fly model airplanes with. I love that radio. That I've got the R9
I can understand why you would like that feel, definitely, because you've been doing this for a long time.
And I put the R9 module in it rather than the Crossfire because my QX7S came with the R9 module as part of the kit. So it cost me $20 for a receiver. And I have yet to fly one of those things anywhere near fail-safe. The range of those things is, 7 miles or something ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty far.
I believe that the Tiny Hawk, some of them come with ready-to-fly kits where you can get like a Tiny Hawk 2 and you'll get a radio and goggles all in one package now.
And you know what? Those are not a bad idea if you can get them for a certain price. Just don't pay too much for that stuff.
Now, there's a Tiny Hawk that's not the Tiny Hawk 2. There's a Tiny Hawk kit they sell. Art Carlson got it. It's cheap. Comes with goggles, comes with a radio, but it's not the normal Tiny Hawk. It has brushed motors. It doesn't run Betaflight. It's a
I've seen that kit around.
Yeah, $110, $20.
That's the Easy Pilot, I think it is. That
Easy
Pilot,
yeah.
right?
But if you look hard enough on Bad, Good, and Gearbest, you could find the Tiny Hawk 2 kit also. I mean, it's a lot
Yeah.
more than the easy one you talked about. We'll say it's over $150, the Tiny Hawk 2 kit.
Right, but you're still getting, if you're going to start out and you think you might like it, you can spend up to $500-600 on a pair of goggles, and you can spend a couple $100 on a radio. That Jumper T16 is $160. So what a bargain that is.
Yeah.
You can get a decent set of goggles for a couple $100. I see that Bill's got.
Bill has a ready to fly
QX7.
kit right there.
I would
There he
also
is.
recommend looking on eBay and getting some of the stuff used. Like you can find a Taranis X9D for under $100 on eBay, and that's a great radio.
It'll fly a Tiny Hawk?
It'll fly everything.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why the Jumper's pretty neat, because the Jumper will actually bind to anything. It'll bind to Spectrum. It'll
Actually, there's one thing.
Free Sky.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that it has a multi-protocol module in it.
I was going to point out to be careful about some Free Sky radios today because of the whole D8 problem.
Yeah,
like
the access nonsense. I'm not buying into that at all.
Well, here's the
I
thing.
got away from it.
Well, here's the problem. Newer production models of QX7 and Taranis X9D Plus, they took out D8. You now need to buy a radio before a certain manufacturer date if you want those features in your Taranis radio. You're only going to get D16 now if it's past a certain manufacturer date. I can't
now
remember
the Tiny Hawk 2, you can go to it'll support D16 mode.
So you're saying
the instructions.
So you're saying my Taranis is going to worth more money in a few months?
Yeah.
You know what? There are people actually looking
legacy,
for older
a legacy one. Yeah.
Those who are in the know.
But it still works great. I put the new what they call the Hall gimbals in there. It works. I love it. The only thing I don't like about it, it's too big. I'm all about compact.
And that was I didn't like the shape of it. It was too wide for me, and the sticks felt too far apart. I mean, I was flying with it, but once I got the DJI goggles on my head and that familiar feeling radio in my hand, it was a whole new world.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward
to
really looking forward to picking up a Tango 2 just for the portability aspect of it.
Same. I really want to get one as well.
Yeah, because everything I have is Crossfire now. I don't have any tiny whoops. I don't have any cine whoops. So this is the smallest thing I got, and I've got Crossfire on it. So that's the beauty of like the Crossfire Nano. It is tiny.
You'll see. Yeah, see, for me, I don't have any of that stuff, but I probably wouldn't get rid of my Taranis anyway. But I do see Crossfire just becoming more and more and more popular, and I've seen blinded flies that come with Crossfire, and sooner or later there's going to be integrated Crossfire with the whoops. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
People want it. Crossfire just becomes more and more popular, and if anything, Free Sky's been shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, they've been really shooting themselves in the foot with the whole access thing and being ridiculous about Jumper. So I don't see there's a lot less love for Free Sky in the community compared to before. So I could see Crossfire, who knows, maybe in a year or two, really just taking over with this Tango 2.
Oh yeah, with their VTX and their, I'm really surprised they haven't come out with the digital system yet. Somebody's really loud.
What's going on? I don't know.
What?
Is that Bill? Oh, it's quiet.
Where's all that noise coming from?
I have no idea.
It must have been Bill.
Somebody got a TV going on, or a kindergarten next door, or something?
Yeah, it sounds like we're getting invaded by Martians or something.
Martians and screeching kids. Yeah.
It was ice from the refrigerator. That's what
See, it wasn't me. You are trying to blame me.
It was ice, but I muted. Anything after I muted, that was whoever. That was whoever.
I don't know what comes with the
you guys
kit.
are hearing after I muted it.
Bill's got the kit. He's got the little Tiny Hawk kit.
That's a little Tiny Hawk controller. Hey, the Tiny Hawk original kit it's not a bad kit just to fart around with if you want to try it.
Pick one up used, maybe get a good deal.
Yeah,
I still have mine. I play with it all the time.
Mm-hmm. Also, I want to add to anybody looking to get into FPV, it is also a gateway drug to 3D printing.
No shit. Tell me about it.
So if you want to get into 3D printing and FPV, that's your bag.
Tell me about it, guys. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's another thing you got to learn.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, go ahead. Because here in just a couple of minutes, I'm going to have to jump off. My wife needs to go downstairs, and we're kind of in that zone of the night. So you all kind of give your leading into the final thoughts of the evening, and we'll close things out. Go ahead, Mitch.
Well, I'll tell you what. As far as I'll show you a little Tiny Hawk whooping around inside the gym. This is a Tiny Hawk 2 in acro mode inside the gym. So that's you can have an awful lot of fun with these little things, and I love it. In fact, I'm going to be doing this tomorrow morning again. And this is how you learn to fly, a non-destructive way to learn how to fly, because you can't break the thing and you can't hurt anybody with it, and it's inexpensive. And this is the way I would suggest everybody learn how to fly. That was the first roll I ever did with it, and that's when I learned that my rates were way too low, and by the time it came all the way around, it was already on the floor. So, so I fixed it. We'll see if I do better with it tomorrow. But that's what I would. Whoops! Hey, got wrong picture. That's what I would recommend. I got too many buttons here in front of me. That's what I would recommend for anybody to starting out. Not to. Because if you start out and buy yourself a 5-inch quad, you got a dangerous buzzsaw there, which is going to be a problem to start with, because it's going to scare the shit out of you, and you're going to be afraid to fly it. And if you're not afraid to fly it, you're going to hurt yourself and someone else with it. So you get one of these little tiny whoops, and they got the little guards on them, and they weigh 20 grams, 25 grams, and you can fly them right into your head, and it won't even bother you. And yet you do get, and Ethan, you'll back me up on this, you do get a legitimate, full-blown FPV experience with those things. You can start out in a stabilized mode, which helps you a lot, especially indoors, and learn, and then you can throw them into acro mode, and that's when you're going to learn how to fly an FPV quad.
Absolutely.
So that's what I got to say.
What are you showing us, John?
And thanks for having me on the show.
We're gonna.
So I just hold up my Mobile 7. That's all. I was just holding up. I was wondering why am I big now? What am I doing?
Oh, okay. I didn't know what was going on, but yeah, it's because I know that Ron needs to take off in just a little bit. We can definitely have our little after show thing, which is fine. But I know some things are kind of winding down here, and I want to just tell everyone that I'm grateful for having everybody show up. I'm grateful for having Mitch on tonight. So I'm going to let the guys give their closing thoughts. I will let Mitch give his closing thought at the end again also. So whoever you all pass it to towards the end, give it to Mitch. And I'm going to go to Ron Brown.
Thank you, Bill. It was a great show tonight. I learned a lot about FPV from listening to our esteemed guests, Mitch, and of course Ethan and John. Always keep me informed. So I guess I will do my research and go on to some of my favorite sites like Banggood and GearBest to start doing my Tiny Hawk 2 research. And we had a great group in the chat tonight, and a lot of people in there advised me on what goggles to get. So I know what goggles to get, and I know what drone to get. So who knows? Next time we have a show like this, maybe I'll have a Tiny Hawk on it. So thanks, everybody. Again, thanks for all the advice in the chat. And I want to say I feel bad for Philly Drone Life losing his Mavic Mini tonight, but hopefully it's a good ending to that story. So I'm going to throw it to my good friend John Cuppi and say goodnight to everybody.
Thank you, Ron. Have a good night. This has been a great chat. I learned so much. Mitch, it was great to be on live with you. Thank you for giving us all this information about the DJI FPV system. Again, it's definitely something I am looking to do in the spring. So all good info. I think everybody learned a lot tonight. Very informative show. And I want to say thanks to everybody in the chat for stopping by and being here. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and throw this now to Ethan.
All right, guys. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I want to thank Mitch for coming on and shooting the breeze with us tonight. It's been a delight to have him on and talk FPV with him. Also, thank everybody in the chat. It's always great to see everybody. It's great to see John, Bill, and Ron. If anybody's got any more questions about the DJI system, and or about FPV in general, don't hesitate to reach out to me, to John or Mitch. We'd definitely be happy to answer any questions you may have. And with that, I'll throw it over to Bill.
Actually, I'm going to throw it to Mitch and let Mitch
forgot
say
Mitch.
one more time.
Everybody
forgot
forgets
Mitch.
No, it's okay. That's
I
okay.
didn't
You know,
forget Mitch.
that's what happens with old people. They put them out to pasture and forget about them. You know?
Old people remember old people. That's
Old
fine.
people. I think I might be, guys, the oldest living FPV pilot right now. At least the oldest living guy that started to fly FPV. So I'd like to see a few older guys than me do it. But thanks for having me on the show. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, I'm doing this. I hope it's all right to plug my deal on Sunday night, but I've started a live stream on Sunday called the FPV Workshop. And I want to have panels, people come in, people who know a lot more than me as guests as well, and make it kind of a forum for this kind of thing to talk about FPV, but more on a beginner level. You know, not trying to compete with the likes of Mr. Steele or Joshua Bardwell. So Sunday night, 8:00, everybody's welcome, and love to see you. And Bill, you too. Love to see you back.
Thank you very much, sir. And I'm very grateful to have had you on the show tonight, and I'm sure everyone's going to want to have you back again in the future. And I want to tell everyone to be sure to tune in next week for The Skydio Has Landed.
Oh, my God.
And we're actually going to have a special guest, John DiNardo, often seen on the Canadian Drone Hub. He's going to come on. He's got himself a new Skydio too. We're going to be talking about that. Maybe we can get some more input information from other people who have the Skydio too. And with that being said, I'm going to say thank you very much for everyone coming out tonight, and live long and prosper.